Psylocke has been consistently one of the strongest DPS carry characters in the game due to her crazy mobility and dueling potential no matter what map she is on. My name is Paz, an Eternity player on the competitive ladder, and I'm going to tell you all of the things you need to know in order to pop off and carry as Psylocke. Starting things off, understand that Psylocke is a flanking assassin that does not want to find herself shooting down main. It is very important that you find a lane away from main and get staged to isolate targets in 1v1s where you can then dash back into the fight later. You do this by activating your invisibility from the perfect distance away so that you can find yourself right in your effective range to instantly eliminate your enemies. Then you take your pick, dash back to your team, and then you can farm tanks to get your cooldowns back, allowing you to do the process all over again. Psylocke takes patience, timing, and confidence in oneself to force out the right targets at the right time and execute. In order to do this, we need to completely understand her kit, so let's get started. Starting off with her primary fire, the Psionic Crossbow, Psylocke shoots out 4 hit scan bullets in 2-shot bursts that deal 12 damage per bolt, totaling in 48 damage per shot or 96 per burst. This means that with 3 bursts to the body, with every bolt hitting, Psylocke can 3 burst any squishy target with 275 HP and below. This is in an ideal world though, since the spread of each projectile caps out at 0.2 meters away from each other or after 10 meters. This might not sound like a lot, but from range, it means you are barely hitting anything, and aiming for the head pretty much becomes obsolete from further than 10 meters out. It also doesn't help that even if you do hit something, damage fall off comes into play from 15 meters away, decreasing your total damage output to 60% compared to normal at 30 meters away. From analyzing the spread of the bolts, however, you'll notice that when you shoot, it's a triangle that you're shooting around your reticle with 1 burst going into the middle. Not only will this help you aim your shots from a bit further away, but also will help you land more consistent damage in general. You could switch your reticle to better suit this pattern, but if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, I think that's just doing a little bit too much, and you should just use what you feel comfortable with. When you are at close range, you can also melee near the end of your reload to cancel a very short part of the animation to also deal a little bit of extra damage on top of that if you need to finish off targets. It's super niche, but now you know if you need it. While the primary damage is important, there is one aspect of the primary fire that so many people miss out on when they are playing Psylocke, and that is for every point of this triangle that you hit, you reduce your neutral cooldowns by 0.25 seconds. This means that for every burst you hit, you reduce each cooldown by 1 second if you hit the whole shot, and 2 seconds if you hit both of those bursts per left click. This should inform you of how you can play the character later on in the guide. A very common playstyle is to dash in from behind, perform your damage combo on a squishy in the backline, and then dash back to your team. If you hit enough shots, you can then keep going again and again until the whole enemy is dead, and this is where farming the tanks really comes in when you watch those really high rank streamers on the character. With this knowledge though, if you're in a really tough spot and need a dash to get out, you can also just default to shooting the enemy tank like we were just talking about from even further away than optimal so that you can possibly expedite that cooldown just in time to dash away into your team. If you are playing efficiently, this shouldn't really ever be the case though, but it is something that comes up enough of the time that it is worth noting when you're learning the character. Also, against tanks, this is why spamming your wing shurikens amplifies your damage so much, since you are constantly farming them off of cooldown. Most of hitting more shots on Psylocke though just does come down to how you were approaching the fight with your movement rather than just raw aim standalone. This is a huge misconception tons of players make. After all, if the target doesn't even know that you are there, the likelihood that you are going to hit shots more consistently goes up considerably, since they're not going to be able to dodge your damage. Enough yap though about the primary damage with Psylocke, let's talk about the wing shurikens. Psylocke's alternate fire are her wing shurikens, which allow her to throw out 5 shuriken projectiles that fire in a square pattern with one of the points in the center, just like her primary fire we were just talking about. These projectiles are not hit scan like your primary fire, meaning the further the target is away from you, the more you're going to have to lead your shots. When released, the shurikens initially do 8 damage each, so 40 damage if all of them hit. And then if they do 14 damage per shuriken on the recall, or 70 damage in total on the recall. So all of this together means that if you hit everything on all of your enemies, you're doing 110 with this ability. The shurikens also give you 10 bonus health per shuriken hit, but only once per use of the cooldown, meaning that if you hit someone with the right click first and then recall, you're only gonna get that 50 bonus health once. The alternate fire shurikens do not deal critical damage though, so it is very important that you are aiming at your target's torso instead of their head so you can secure more of those shurikens hitting. It is also important that you are not too far away from your target either, because at 25 meters, the shurikens will just kind of sit there until you have them recall back, or if you just wait out the timer. Also, these shurikens do run into fall off at 15 meters away, just like your primary fire, but the fall off caps 5 meters sooner and decreases the damage to 80% of what is normal. Shurikens get recalled back to you after 3 seconds, or if you press right click again. But this is where things get really interesting with the ability, because when you press right click again, they don't just return right to you. They actually travel towards where your crosshair is at when recalled before coming back to you. This means that you can pull off some pretty cool cleaving tech with the ability if you get really creative. All right, but let's talk about the combo that everyone is going to use with this ability in conjunction with the rest of her kit. The simple version is to shoot your enemy with your primary fire, hit your shurikens with the right click, and then recall them back, shooting the enemy again with your primary fire 2 times. Even without headshot damage, this is going to instantly eliminate 275 HP targets. Against 250 HP targets, you can switch this combo up by shooting the primary shots, hitting the shurikens, and then dashing through the target, since the dash instantly recalls the shurikens. More on that later. You might be sitting there and thinking to yourself though, Paz, these are practice range clips, they mean nothing. But honestly, if you just set yourself up and stop revealing your position, it is very simple to hit these combos consistently through the element of surprise. Sure, you aren't always going to hit the combo every single time, but it is not impossible and is still practical to know if you just approach the situation correctly. While hitting as many targets as possible with the shurikens is pretty cool, most of the time in the way I am positioning, the right click is about damage combos on one target first, and if you can hit other targets too, I mean, that's great, go for it. But if not, it is better to just focus on getting that one kill and getting out. While looking at the target with right click doesn't change how much damage the shurikens do, it will throw off your aim pretty hard with your primary fire after the fact. So when you are first starting off, it is okay to just focus on getting into the rhythm. Psylocke can be one of the hardest characters in the game. Since we covered a little bit about the dash, let's talk about that ability next, the Psi-Blade dash. Upon pressing the cooldown, Psylocke launches herself 12 meters forward every 8 seconds. That deals 50 damage to any enemies the dash passes through. You get 2 charges of the dash, 1 to get in and 1 to get out. Using your primary fire, you can reduce the cooldown for the dash that you already did while you still have the other one ready to go, by the way, which is really important that you take note of. Outside of the dash pulling the wing shurikens back to you, there are actually a couple of things you'll want to think about when you are dashing through your enemies. Let's face it, aim is really important on Psylocke, and while it comes down to pointing and clicking at the end of the day, the more you move, the harder it is to hit your shots on the character. Because of this, it is important that you learn how the dash works and how you can actually manipulate its movement. If all you do is just dash at your targets, you are constantly going to push through them, and then you're gonna have to turn in a 180-degree angle to start shooting them again. However, there is a way to actually make your dash shorter. Depending on where you are compared to your target, you can dash at the ground on an angle to halt your movement a little bit. If the target is super close, you can dash at a really harsh angle to end up right in front of them. The further you are away, the less harsh your angle should be. The idea behind placing your dashes is you want your enemy to be right in front of you after you dash so that you don't have to move your crosshair at all. So it's just that much easier to one-shot them. Now, if you mess up or if you want to dash multiple targets, you can actually whip yourself around mid-dash to set up your crosshair right when your primary fire becomes available. This is probably only going to be possible on mouse and keyboard, and it's not ideal because the longer you play, the more tired your arm is going to get. But hey, maybe you touch grass and you don't play 8 hours a day and that won't be a problem. Well, let's be real. If you want to be good at Psylocke, you probably just don't touch that much grass anyway. Other than the dash placement and the damage combos we have already discussed, there isn't too much else with this ability. Make sure you always have a dash to get out or to confirm your safety, and you should be good. Moving on to the final of the normal abilities Psylocke has, we have her Psychic Stealth. Upon pressing the cooldown, she becomes invisible for 3 seconds and moves 50% faster. It is on a 15-second cooldown, which might sound pretty long, but when you remember that her primary fire reduces this cooldown, trust me, it's really not that bad at all. You can also reload while in stealth, which is pretty neat, and you can also pick up health packs. If you get attacked in stealth by any instance of damage, you will still remain in stealth and enjoy the speed boost for the ability, but you will also become visible for a short duration to the enemies and make a noticeable sound that you were detected. You'll want to avoid using this to get out if the enemies already see you. It's like playing Metal Gear Solid and trying to use the cardboard box literally in front of the guards. It's just not going to work. So the hard part about this ability is figuring out the best time to use the ability. The first condition is if you were trying to conceal your flank. For example, let's talk about Spider Islands. Against good players, if you were to just walk through main to the left side here, the supports will anticipate that you will be coming from somewhere in that area later on in the fight. To outplay them, you can just use your invisibility to walk through main away from any spam damage, and then when you are concealed from sight, you can press stealth again to start the cooldown as fast as possible so it is up sooner. The second condition is if you are trying to engage on a flank or to find a pick. It is important that you don't use your invisibility too early because then you will be revealed before you actually get close enough to your enemy. On the flip side, if you use it too late, the enemies might see you in the open before you actually use it, but if they don't see you, they're most definitely going to hear you because your initial switch into invis form is loud as heck. They will also just hear you when you leave invis too. Your footsteps are also very audible when you are invisible as well, but not nearly as loud as your initial clap. You can get around this sound by jumping to dampen some of the sound since it's not going to be consistent, but then when you hit the ground it is a little bit louder, so there is a trade-off there. Getting a feel for when you're supposed to hit your invisibility is something that you're just going to have to feel out. Ideally, you want to use the invis so that right when the timer runs out, you'll be right in the effective range to immediately take out your target of choice. Now, the last condition is if you are trying to get away, but it has to be in a very specific way. Let's say you got a pick and just got your stealth ability back online. You can dash behind a wall and then use your invisibility. In this case, it makes the information the enemy had on you instantly worthless up until that point. They have to be left guessing. Did you move immediately? Did you wait in stealth? As you can see, it creates a lot of options for you to get out. Popping invis right in front of your enemy though is just asking to get forced out or eliminated. With all of these invisibility tips in mind, we have finally made it to Psylocke's ultimate. Psylocke's ultimate, the Dance of the Butterfly, creates a circle around her with a 10-meter spherical radius that deals 150 damage per hit, hitting one target in that radius 2 times per second for 4 seconds. So with each ultimate, Psylocke will hit targets a maximum of 8 times for 1200 damage in total. While in the ultimate, Psylocke also moves much slower compared to her in her normal form. In order to get really solid with this ultimate, you have to understand how Psylocke prioritizes her damage within it. Psylocke will slash a random enemy, but she will also give priority to one that was hit the least by the ultimate so far. It is not about damage taken, it is about how many times the target has been hit so far. This matters when a target is getting healed. This is very important to understand because it'll tell you how your ult's going to get countered. For example, Loki's clones are the best counter to Psylocke's ultimate, since he can place 2 down and they will tank at least 1 slash each. Not to mention he can keep placing them down to give players even more time to leave the radius. Also, if a target goes invisible, it means they can't get targeted. This is important for the Invisible Woman matchup. Because this ultimate works the way that it does, you rarely ever want to go for this ultimate in the middle of the entire enemy team. This is because they are just going to soak up the damage and you are going to be found right in the middle after with all of their damage at you when the ultimate is over. Instead, this ultimate is better to use on 1 or 2 stragglers that are isolated from the team to confirm picks rather than trying to go for a hero play. The only time this is different is if the enemies are all pretty low and they are on the point in overtime. If you can reasonably take targets down with a slash or 2, it's fine to go for a big ult, but you have to understand the nuance of the situation so you don't troll. It is also important to think about what ultimates the enemies have to stop you, specifically support ultimates. Always keep track of what ultimates they have and try to pressure those targets early in the fight to possibly force their ultimates to then go for your play. The biggest mistake I see a lot of players make is that they just dash in at the start of a fight and look for an ultimate. This ult is super easy to just run away from, get a bubble, use a support ult, you name it. It is usually much better to approach the fight as normal to force out cooldowns and ultimates before you go for the execution of your play. Also, since a lot of players use this as a get out of jail free card, they go in thinking they're going to be safe after, when there is actually a very short animation that will lock you out of dashing while you are vulnerable. Make sure you are safe after you use your ultimate. Now, before we go on to discussing counters and synergies, let's discuss the team up that Psylocke gets currently with Emma Frost, Psychic Echoes. Usually we hold on to this until the very end with the synergies part, but this is such a big team up that it needs to be talked about. When pressing the corresponding ability key, Psylocke will spawn a clone of herself that moves opposite of how you move, but otherwise mirrors everything that you do with your kit outside of ulting. If you ult, it'll just run around and shoot. The clone goes invisible for a second, as well as Psylocke for 1 second after hitting the clone, does a little less damage, and only has 150 health. Since the clone does do damage, it makes it much easier for you to find picks. But in my opinion, this clone is used to prolong your engagement rather than to help you find a specific pick. This is because your standalone kit is already enough to do the damage that you need, and then this clone is just another way to keep you alive for longer. Typically, I just go along my fight as normal. I hit my combos, and then when the enemy turns for me, hit the clone, go invisible, and then distract the enemy for enough time for my team to come in and help me deal the damage that I need to the rest of the enemies, since I'm probably going to be running a brawl composition if I have an Emma anyways. This team up is super insane, but it is pretty hard to get the most out of it. With more practice, you'll really feel the strength come to life. All right, but now that we have discussed all of Psylocke's abilities, let's start talking about what counters Psylocke. Psylocke really struggles when the element of surprise is lost and the enemy is constantly marking her. As for tanks, there aren't really any tanks that she specifically struggles with in my opinion, other than Penny Parker. The thing is that sure, Penny's nests can be really annoying since breaking them reveals your position and stops you from flanking, but the catch is that Penny kind of sucks, so until she's good, there's really nothing to worry about. The thing can immobilize you, but if you are that close to him, you're the problem. Your gameplay is most definitely the problem there. As it stands for Hulk, Hulk can be really annoying because of all the bubbles and that can stop your ultimate, but the team up with Namor is far and away more annoying because then it's really not up to you to shoot the turrets because you're not going to be that close to them usually, and you're really at the mercy of your supports. Other duelists that can be pretty annoying are Star-Lord, for example, because he has a really easy time just forcing you out of your invisibility and making your flank noticed. You always have the upper hand in eliminating him in the 1v1, in my opinion. If he just lives and marks you, he's probably going to win more over time with his team, and he also has a better ultimate in my opinion. As for supports, any support can counter you if they use their utility correctly. But the one that can do this the best right now is Rocket, in my opinion, since his armor packs actually affect a lot of your breakpoints on the character, making it much more difficult to eliminate targets. Outside of Rocket, Loki is another one that can be really annoying since he becomes immortal at the click of a button, and his clones absolutely shut your ultimate down for free, so he is also a very notable nuisance. Moving on to the characters Psylocke likes to play with, it's important to note the team up that we talked about with Emma. Outside of Emma, any tank that can support Psylocke on her dive is always appreciated. Characters like Captain America and Venom are super nice since they can jump from the opposite lane of Psylocke, and then she can just come in from her own lane to easily eliminate targets alongside the bulky health pools of her teammates. As for DPS, I personally don't mind playing with any other diver in the backline, but I also don't mind having a hit scan like Hela or even just like Hawkeye to apply some pressure. Each kind of character has their strengths and weaknesses, it just depends on the situation and the map. Jeff the Shark is probably my favorite DPS kind of character to have with Psylocke though, as he does a great job flanking and taking attention away from the enemies so that I can go in with Psylocke unseen with health already taken off of my enemies, so it's even that much easier to get my combos completed. I know I sound crazy, but if you can get a triple support comp going with the Jeff and go Psylocke, you'll see what I mean. Outside of Jeff, Luna Snow is always great with Psylocke just because you can go on a flank deeper with the Snowflake too, and if you're going up against another Psylocke that doesn't have the Snowflake, you're gonna be winning that far more often than not. Before we go into the VOD portion of this guide, when should you be playing Psylocke? Are there any strong characters that she shuts down? I specifically like pulling out Psylocke when the enemy has an oppressive hit scan like Hela or even Hawkeye. The reason why is that you can use the invisibility against them to close the distance and eliminate them right away before they get healing from their team. Hela and Hawkeye just feel like these characters are either run or get rocked in ranked, so Psylocke is an excellent tool against those annoying heroes since they are pretty common too. Now that we understand Psylocke and her kit and where she is applicable, let's take a look at a couple of VODs to get an even better understanding of her kit. All right, so today we're going to be looking at two very strong Psylocke players, Melophobia and Delena, from Shikigami and 100 Thieves respectively. I got this code from a recent Shroud tournament from a player that had their profile open but immediately shut it down like 30 minutes after, so I got lucky. You guys did not, unfortunately, but that does not matter because right now we're going to be looking at some really good Psylocke play, and I wanted to show you guys how Melophobia goes about getting his ultimate. So right here, he was starting out at 76% ult charge, 2 support alts go down. So instead of trying to do these crazy flank plays, all he's going to try to do, since he knows people are going to be invincible, is get his ult. He dashes in, and that's going to make it so that SJP has to use his Invisible Woman ult. But look how he doesn't try to ult right away here. He forces out the support ults, and then he goes for his execution. Dashes the point so that with the small amount of movement the ult has, can just barely get around this wall and live. And I really wanted to highlight this part of farming the ultimate and then using it in this way, because watch how he doesn't really try to thirst for kills here. He's more so thirsting for utility and trying to just get out and live here over trying to go here right on top of the supports where you have no way to get out if you don't manage to kill them, because I mean, look how many people are on point. You're probably not going to get it anyways. Instead, he uses it so that he can be just on the outside range of the circle to get the enemy supports and then have just enough movement to live right here. I think this living part is something that so many DPS players are missing on this character, because if he was just maybe even just right like here, he probably still dies due to the animation that you can't dash right after the ultimate. So if you do this kind of stuff, you're going to live longer and possibly be able to carry more fights after you get a good significant amount of value. All right, to paint this picture for the second VOD, Delena knows that Mello died pretty late into last fight and that the team is fighting without him right now. So what he's going to do is he's going to know that and set up a flank on him right away as he's walking back to spawn. But what Mello does is uses the Emma team up to extend the flank, to extend his life just a little bit longer so that he can get into the Luna ult. This was a very good job by both Psylocks, both pressuring and having that on the feet play here, as we can see now by Delena, but also being able to counter the play that he was making with that Emma Frost team up. And this is just why I love it. It's so confusing right in that moment and just buys him just enough time. You can use it to be aggressive, sure, but I also wanted to highlight something we said about in the guide, which was just trying to live a little bit longer. And for this last VOD that we're going to review, it might be the simplest thing that I see so many Psylocke players getting wrong. I just want you to look. Watch how he doesn't engage here when he's outside of his effective range and waits for him to actually engage when it's right. Now, still, they're going to be able to peel for each other. I mean, this is pro play. Obviously, the supports are going to have that faster reaction time. But if you can do what Mello just did in your ranked games, you are going to carry so much. And then after losing a fight, using Invis to get out so that he doesn't stagger as hard. I mean, this is all really good stuff. But if you do that in the other 2 VODs we were talking about, you are well on your way to carrying games on Psylocke. And that closes out today's guide for Psylocke in Marvel Rivals. If you have any questions, make sure to send them in the comments down below, as well as asking me live right now here on YouTube or on Twitch at twitch.tv/PazSwagger. I stream every day I upload, so be sure to check me out to learn more about everything I talked about today. Thank you guys all so much for watching, but until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.